Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Chessboard Baseball. I'm APO. And now that the series between the Yankees and the Orioles has concluded, where the Yankees actually swept the Orioles 3-0, it is time for some awards. So what we're going to do is we're going to select series MVPs, and we're going to do both pitchers and we're going to do hitters, both pitchers and hitters. And we're going to do team MVP. So who was the series MVP for the Yankees, and then the team MVP for the Orioles. And then we're going to do an overall series MVP for the hitters. And then we're going to do the same thing with the pitchers. So that's pretty much what we're gonna do in this stream. So yeah, hopefully you stick around for that so that we can see who stood out during this 3-game series. Okay. So here's what we got for this series. So what we're gonna do is I'd like to focus first on the Yankees, then we'll focus on the Orioles, and then we'll do the overall person. So looking at the Yankees, so here Paul Goldschmidt only had one plate appearance, so of course we can't say that's the guy. What we're gonna do is we're just going to limit this to minimum 6 plate appearances, because it's a 3-game series, and assuming that any hitter played at least 2 games, then they should have had at least at least 6 plate appearances if they played 2 full games. So that's kind of the logic that we're going to use here. But even in some instances which a player qualifies sometimes, and they may have a higher RAvg average than someone else, doesn't mean that they get the award automatically. So we'll look at everything. Yes, the main driver for these awards is RAvg average in accordance with Chessboard Baseball. So that's kind of my driver. Whoever is first on that, I'm going to consider heavily. But then we'll look at traditional stats. So this is just for my Chessboard Baseball stats, but then we'll look at traditional stats just to make sure we can do a sanity check, just to make sure that I'm not handing out awards and then when we look at traditional stats, it doesn't make any sense. So here, what we have is we essentially have Trent Grisham leading the Yankees by a wide margin. Second is Spencer Jones, and that's kind of surprising because Spencer Jones, for most of the series, was pretty much out, and he seemed like he was struggling. But then this last game, he turned it on. I think this last game he either had 3 or 4 hits. I can't remember. But if we look at traditional, Spencer Jones had 5 hits versus Grisham's 4. But then where Grisham stands out, well, Grisham had a home run, so Grisham did have 3 RBI, so it's a little bit more. Spencer Jones struck out 5 times, Grisham 3. So those 5 strikeouts are crazy. But those final numbers for Jones are actually really good. So 417 batting average and a over 1,000 OPS. So Spencer Jones, 4 singles versus Grisham's 3 singles. Again, both of them homered. It's just Grisham 3 RBI. I feel like Grisham had the most impact in this series. There were some games where the first 2 games, like, he's the one who created the separation. I think the first game, the Yankees won 3-1. He had all 3 RBIs. But here, what does it say in traditional? How many RBIs for Grisham? Only 3? Maybe I'm not remembering something right, but anyways, Grisham had 14 plate appearances versus Jones's 2 plate appearances. What else? Yeah, I think I'm leaning Grisham for Yankees MVP. But Spencer Jones had a good series, but again, most of it was that last game where he went crazy. And then Ben Rice had a really good series as well. Ramos did, Caballero. George Lombard struggled this series, but it wasn't needed much. And his process success was also very low at 56%. So you definitely want to see that at least in the 60s. If you're in the 50s, that means you're struggling a bit. Austin Wells was the I guess the one who didn't perform that well for the Yankees, but everyone else was good. Let's look at results points, because this tells us Ben Rice had the most results points. That's crazy. And a 35% success rate. Grisham, 29 points. Yeah, so I do think that for the Yankees, for the hitters, our MVP for the Yankees is Trent Grisham. So that's who I'm going to select for hitters. And now let's look at the Orioles. And that's exactly who I thought the MVP was. Now I need to compare this with Alonso, because Alonso also had a really solid series. But Beaver still takes him in RAvg, and again, that's the main driver. Now Alonso had 4 more plate appearances than Beavers. So let's see what the traditional stats tell us. So this tells a little bit of a different story. Although not really. Beavers still had a ridiculous 1.5 OPS. Alonso was 917, which was really good too, but the slugging and the OPS for Beavers was crazy, right? He had 2 home runs. There were 2 solo shots. So his only 2 hits were 2 home runs. He didn't have a walk. He only struck out 3 times, whereas Alonso struck out 4. Alonso also homered. So, but Beavers had 1 more home run. And then Alonso did have 4 hits total versus Beavers 2. But again, we do have to also consider the fact that Alonso have 4 more plate appearances. So could go either way with this one, in my opinion. But I will give that to Beavers. And let's look at everyone else. So I think this is going to be Beavers. Our Orioles team MVP. And looking at everyone else, so I think only Beavers and Alonso really had a good series for the Orioles. Everyone else was Henderson wasn't really felt too much. I feel like he didn't really do that much. Let's look at traditional again. Henderson had 2 hits from his 12 plate appearances. Taveras, Mayo, Narvaez, nope. Holiday, yeah. Cowser had a horrendous. That's really bad. That's a really bad series. I mean, if you put Cowser, Basayo, and Encarnacion, they were all really bad series there. So I'm confident with my Dylan Beavers pick for the Orioles. So now we move to the overall series MVP for the entire series, and Grisham versus Beavers is essentially what it comes down to. And Grisham does have a lot more of everything over Beavers. Not only that, but the Yankees did win, right? Not only did they win, they swept the Orioles. So I think the overall series MVP has to be a Yankee no matter what. So here, the overall series MVP goes to Trent Grisham. And there we go. So I'm going to save and certify Beavers as the series MVP. Grisham, Yankees MVP, and Grisham for the series MVP. So these are your MVPs, your hitter MVPs for Orioles versus Yankees, the series that just ended. So now we got to do pitchers. And for pitchers, let's look at the Yankees first. And here's who we have, but I already know who the MVP is. This is actually an easy one to select, and that is Garrett Cole. So we have 23 plate appearances for Cole versus 6 is Bednar. Now, Bednar was lights out. Look at that rook average, 917. That's absolutely crazy and insane. I mean, look at his result success. Nobody did anything to Bednar. Nobody touched him. Nobody reached base. Nothing against Bednar, right? I mean, let's see. Bednar, 2 innings, clean innings, 3 strikeouts, nothing. I mean, clean as it gets. But it's only 6. Garrett Cole was amazing today. He was amazing. 23 plate appearances or hitters faced and a 435 rook average. Even his result success, it was amazing, 78%. Yarbrough is another honorable mention here. Ryan Yarbrough, you see him there, number 3. Blackburn was amazing too. Really, all the pitchers, with the exception of Warren and Hedrick, I thought were outstanding for the Yankees this series. The Orioles barely did anything to the Yankees, with the exception of those homers by Beavers and Alonso. Not a lot of offense for the Orioles. But yeah, I mean, I do want to shout out the entire Yankees pitching staff. I wish I could give more than one award, but I can't. It's only one. And for the Yankees, that goes to Garrett Cole. And now the Orioles. The Orioles, is this really? Oh, I put 6 here. Let me do 3. I was gonna say, is this everybody that pitched? But that's not everybody that pitched. And actually, that wasn't it for the Yankees either. So we got Tim Hill. I forgot to mention Tim Hill. Another shout out to Tim Hill. He was amazing this series as well, but he only faced 4 hitters, so 4 hitters faced. That bullpen, again, crazy. So Hill, Bednar, Yarbrough, Blackburn, De Los Santos. Cruz was not really that good. Neither was Hedrick, and neither was Warren. But everyone else was good. So yeah. And now to the Baltimore pitchers. So it seems like, let's see. Let me. I mean, it looks. I'm thinking Shane Bass, and I'm not against giving relievers series MVP, but I don't think that one's deserved here. Let's look at traditional for Bass. Am I remembering correctly? Well, he pitched 6 innings. That's pretty good as a starter against the Yankees. He only allowed 4 hits. Now, he did allow 3 runs. Walked 2, struck out 10. So that's a really good outing. His ERA was 4.26. But again, everyone else that had better ERA than him were all relievers. So I might go Shane Bass for Orioles MVP. His whip was 0.95, so that was pretty good for an outing. Strikeouts per walk, 5. Yeah, I'm leaning Bass here. Shane Bass. 66% process success, 76% for Bass. Suarez had a good case, but this last game he was rocked a little bit. So I think I'm gonna go Shane Bass for Orioles MVP. And then overall series MVP, I mean, it's Garrett Cole. That's an easy one. So there we go. These are my picks. So we're certifying this. So we've got Yankees MVP, Garrett Cole, Orioles MVP, Shane Bass, and Yankees MVP or overall series MVP, Garrett Cole. And those are the selections. So just to recap real quick for the hitters, we had Dylan Beavers, Orioles MVP, and Trent Grisham, both Yankees and Orioles Series MVP. And then for the pitchers, we had Shane Bass for the Orioles, Gary Cole for the Yankees, and Series MVP. So that essentially wraps up that series with Chessboard Baseball, Yankees and Orioles. Like I said, really impressive outing by the Yankee bullpen and the entire Yankee pitching staff. Runs didn't come by easily for either team, but the Yankees were able to find some runs in the last two games, scoring 5 in the second game, 6 in the last game, and only allowing 1 run. And then I think they allowed so it was 5 runs total in that 3-game series. So that's why the pitchers were so impressive. The Orioles lost 3 in a row, so now they're way back again for the wild card. But we'll see what happens with them. But that is it for this edition of Series Awards between the Yankees and the Orioles. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.